That's one small step for man.
AI rebels face.
Giant leap for mankind.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to yet another episode of the AI Rebels podcast. As always, I'm your co-host, Spencer.
And I'm your co-host, Jacob. And we're very excited to have our old high school, middle school, elementary school friend, Jake. This is like bringing together the past.
Yeah,
Spencer and I were friends. Jake and I were friends. I don't know if we were in like the same friend group, us three, but we all knew each other.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
definitely
we all
knew
kind
each other.
of rotated through similar friend groups, I feel like.
Yeah.
We went through the gauntlets of middle school and high school, and now we're coming back together. I love it.
I know,
Yeah,
look at us.
no, it's awesome.
Jake and I played football on the Alpine Eagles. in
Yeah, we
Alpine
did. Yep.
Eagles.
Fifth, sixth
Dude,
grade.
what a throwback! The dads were the coaches, and we were
Yeah.
going at it. Yeah.
We go way back. So this is exciting to bring it full circle. I feel like that's AI, bringing people
Yeah.
together. But so Jake, for our listeners, is he's at Brex, which I think a lot of people know. My company I work for, Nasuni, is a new loyal Brex customer. So
Love to
big
hear it, yeah.
fans. Which is exciting. Brex has grown a ton the last the last 5 years. I feel like Brex has really
Yeah.
taken off.
Yep.
And you are on the customer experience side, helping manage
Correct.
those relationships. Can you give us
This is a quick overview.
Yeah, go
What
ahead,
does Brex do?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
good-
Only
Absolutely.
very roughly familiar, so.
Yeah. Brex is a one-stop financial tech stack for any growing business. So from like an enterprise to a startup to a commercial mid-market in between, you could run your business on Brex. So we have our commercial credit card, we have our banking product, we have our expense management, we have bill pay, procurement, travel, right? So it's like in the old world, right? You need 4 or 5 different systems, your Amex, your
Yeah.
Concur, your Expensify,
Right.
maybe a different type of travel product to kind of run your business. Brex is just, you can run everything through us, and it's just a one-stop place for everything.
Okay, awesome. Good context to have. as we
Yeah,
dive into
yeah,
this
super
episode.
cool. So give us maybe a snapshot of
Yeah.
where you're at and the path you've taken with AI. Like
Totally.
what's gotten you here?
No, I've been at Brex for over 6 years. I'll be 7 years in July, this upcoming summer. And so I've worked in a lot of different roles within Brex, but I started out in customer experience as a customer experience agent on a very small kind of like, I think Brex at the time had 100 employees. So a team of like 10 to 12 support agents. And then we grew from there, and I served many different roles within the company, within customer experience and operations. Brex right now is around 13 to 1,400 employees. So we've had a considerable amount of growth in the past, like 7-8 years. And so my specific role, I'd say, is a little more unique within Brex. I sit on a team called, we call CX strategy, or, customer experience strategy. My team, I would say, bridges the gap between like our support and like our engineering and product. And so one, we do a lot of process improvement. So it's like, how do we drive improvements with the support team? Your core support metrics, our CSAT, our TTR, average handle time, et cetera. And a lot of that work comes from tooling improvements. We have our Salesforce CRM, a lot of internal tools that agents use to serve customers. And then we also kind of bridge the gap with our product and engineering team, like I mentioned. So we take a lot of data from tickets, we take a lot of data from anecdotal feedback, from survey feedback, to then drive change in the company of like, hey, we have friction or a high contact rate in these specific product areas. A really important metric to Brex is NPS. So it's like we see it moving positively or negatively, tied to these kind of like splits. What should we change with product or process to improve those? Really, the most important metrics to us are contact rate and NPS. So it's like, what do we change to improve those? And so really my role, I would say, from the past 12 to 15 months has been really focused on AI and generative AI from a support perspective of like, how do we improve our containment rate? How do we get customers' resolutions faster? Front end, and then when tickets do get through, on the back end, how do we improve agent productivity? How do we improve agent quality, and how do we improve the customer experience that way? So it kind of naturally fit into like the role that I was already in of like, how do we drive improvements, improve the core metrics? How do we really make sure we improve the customer experience and our human agent experience? And then AI just naturally fit in that. And that's really been my primary focus for, let's say like the past year.
I'm excited to dive into it. One of the first things that I got super excited about when I started playing with ChatGPT when it released was the support potential. Because for a bit, for about a year, I was training support agents for a local company in Utah. And I became convinced that probably 80% of any company's, support workflow can be at least partially handled by an automated workflow. Yeah. And so I'm excited to hear about what Brex has been doing.
Yeah, cool.
Do you want to just jump in?
Yeah, let me just jump in. So Brex support serves customers like in any way that they need. We always want to meet the customer where they're at. So we have chat, phone, and email, and then we also serve SMS, WhatsApp, and Slack. So from a volume perspective, chat is by far our biggest volume driver. And so our primary focus was like, we want a generative chat bot to get in and really help deflect a lot of these cases so that we can improve our containment rate, grow at a much more scalable rate, right? Like, how do we maintain our current team size or grow just more slowly and serve 10x the customer base? So for the past 12 months, we partnered with an external vendor to implement a generative chatbot. Before, our chatbot was a scripted one. So containment rate, really high manual effort to kind of like, anticipate customer questions. And so we're really excited on the generative side. So we partnered with a company called Sierra AI, and we've implemented their agent SDK. We are expanding into our other channels, but the primary focus first has been chat for the first, I guess we started our procurement process maybe late 2024, early 2025, and then we've been going from there. And so first, I'll stop there. And then on the internal side, there's always going to be things that get through. So we wanted to develop an agent co-pilot that would improve the productivity of agents with email generation, case summaries, action taking, etc. We've gone through a couple iterations. We opted to build this internal one. We had engineering support on this. And we're like, okay, let's build an agent co-pilot using our internal tooling and access to LLMs within. And so this one has been more rocky, where we had engineering support and we were building something. As every company struggles with engineering support, it's the highest commodity, or it's the most commoditized thing or whatever. And so priorities changed. It kind of stalled. We still are building, but we're kind of I'd say half building, half buying with an internal tool called Glean AI. If you've heard of that, it's
I haven't.
I think we originally used it as it's like a search function. So it's you as an internal employee could search and find any answer within the business. And then there's also, they have a really, I would say, intuitive agent building platform. And so we have opted to build our internal co-pilot through this Glean tool. And we're embedding that within Salesforce so that it's just riding along with our support agents whenever they're working a case, because that's our hub for support and operations within Brex is our Salesforce CRM. So that's really where we've been focusing on is one, I think our philosophy is any support outreach is a product failure, right? In its core form, where it's you either product didn't meet the needs, they didn't understand it, or there's a bug. So how do we first contain that with AI while maintaining a high customer experience? If we can't, how do we augment the agent's ability to handle it faster, handle more tickets, grow and scale? But that's really, I would say, the two main areas from a support perspective where we've been focusing. A lot of other initiatives within the business on the operation side and the product side, but like we mentioned, right, my main focus is on that support side.
Wow. Interesting. I want to make a quick point. Something that is cool about AI to me is it's often kind of talked about as mystical, magical, amazing. This is inspiration from the gods, and in a lot of ways it lives up to that. But then on the other hand, what you just described is the same process that anyone would follow when rolling out a new software to the company, right? At the end of the day, it's a new tool for your workflow. I think that people sometimes get too far away from that reality. They're hey, this is a really cool tool.
I totally agree.
So much.
I feel like a cultural shift for Brex as a whole. We really had to go through that. It was we were okay, how do we augment people's what are we working on daily? How are we making AI a focus? And I feel there's rightfully so fear or hesitation of I don't know what this is. Is it going to take my job? Is it going to do all this certain thing? But it was literally at least with my team, I was like, we are a process improvement team. Like that is our pure job. And like the end goal has not changed at all. We just now have like a different tool set to go and accomplish like that same task. Like I don't really, it didn't feel any like transition. I guess the transition was just like, let's learn this new tool. Let's learn like what works and what doesn't work. But it never, to me, changed like, what's my end goal? What does success look like for me or my team?
Yeah, that's interesting. Which is one of the reasons I was so excited to have you on, Jake, because you have been like a lot of our guests obviously are fascinating. We chose them to come on the podcast, but they're like, what's like a higher level, like developing a model, researching, they're like doing all these, or they like founded an AI company, you know what I mean?
Or they don't have like customers yet. And that's not to speak down on any of our guests who didn't have customers yet, but like it is a different perspective coming from a company that has,
I feel like I'm the end user. Like I'm
exactly.
Like you mentioned before, you said like this like godlike ability. I feel like I've been on the side where it's like I don't see that. Like it's a very powerful tool. We've seen it do really great things, but I see the back end of like this is a terrible response, or like why would it do this? Like this is so like I've definitely just been the end user and like very much in the weeds of like how do customers actually interact with this, and I think relevant to like where we're at, like maybe in our careers, it's like what is a developer? I'm not a developer, but you know what I mean? Like what is someone who's like owning a tool like this and needing to control its output and like, I'm responsible to business for the metrics that are tied to it. So I totally agree with you.
Yeah. So what kind of, as far as Brex goes, they're not an AI company, but they're trying to utilize AI. And you mentioned that there's kind of been this
I think
like shift.
I would actually classify Brex as like an AI company, but I do think that we needed to go through this shift. Like we talk about a lot where it's like, Brex still relatively new, let's say like 7 years, but other businesses being built in the past year almost have an advantage because they're like building their like infrastructure from the ground up with AI. Like Brex definitely had to go through like a transition period of like, we don't, I firmly believe that you don't just bolt AI on. It needs to be like an integral part of like the product, the foundation, the process. And so I think that was like our transition period of like, we're not just bolting it on of just like, every ad, every billboard you saw was just like AI, but it's just like, I think a good example of that is when we were going through our vendor selection process for our chatbot, like I met with 20, 30 different vendors and 95% of them were just like ChatGPT with a UI wrapper on that, right? And so it's just like no one is differentiated. Like this is all the same. And so that's what Brex went through of that process of like how do we like fully integrate this into our product? And so now I feel like we truly are at like an agentic finance like position where it's like
that's amazing,
seamlessly, naturally like helping. And our goal is to just like help companies spend smarter and faster. Like that's the pure goal of that. So but I do think that there was that transition period of like our systems and our foundation. It's like how do we integrate it? How do we change it? How do we rebuild it from the ground up if really we're getting at it?
Yeah, I wonder. There's got to be like a better term because I agree. Like it sounds like Brex is fully integrated with AI, right?
Yeah,
it's almost because there's. When I say AI company, I'm almost thinking of, OpenAI, where their whole product is AI, right?
Totally.
But then there's Brex, which it sounds like you have and will continue to essentially infuse everything with AI. So it is an AI product.
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
AI,
like
AI infused company.
AI infused. I don't, I don't know the distinction. Like the product itself is, I guess, still finance, but it's like the fuel behind it is like the AI of like pushing it forward. Yeah.
Which I think is the future, honestly. Like there's a market obviously for AI, pure AI companies where it's like they're building a model. They're building a pure AI tool like the chatbot that you ended up purchasing. But I think the real future and where AI, what will prevent a bubble from collapsing is exactly what Brex is doing in my mind.
Exactly.
It's companies infusing and bringing it into the real world.
Totally. I fully agree.
were there any kind of key organizational principles that you guys had to rethink when integrating AI, or was it mostly a case of like, how do we, how do we work within our organizational principles to incorporate AI?
Yeah, I don't think there was that dramatic of like organizational shifts, honestly. Like I think
Hmm.
especially for my team, right? Like it was just like I mentioned before, like we're a process improvement team. This is a new
Right.
tool in which we can accomplish that same goal. I think the biggest shift is probably more for like the support org itself with like human
Yeah.
agents of like, okay, like how do we view the importance of automation versus like a human touch point? Like do we
Yeah.
need to reevaluate like what are so like I think support of a lot of orgs is like very data and metric heavy like of any call center, any support team, like that's a really big component of just like what's the cost to serve, what's the average handle time, like you get so like minute. And so I think that was more of like our focus of like, do we need to
Yeah.
rethink like which metrics are important to us? Do we need to
Hmm.
like, what's our North Star? What's supplemental? Do we change that? And for the most part, I think it still remains the same of like the most important aspect to Brex is the customer experience. Like we would rather have a higher average handle time and have a better customer experience versus like I do think we placed a bigger emphasis on containment rate, but I still think um, the customer experience always outweighs that. One of the questions that I saw that you guys had that I thought was curious is like, what I can't remember it now off the top of my head, but I remember the answer was just like, I think containment rate is an overhyped metric that I think a lot of people
Mm.
will sell on the support side with AI because having gone through the building process, it's not hard to get a high containment rate. You could easily get a very high containment rate, but that would
Interesting.
be a very poor customer experience. Like it wouldn't be hard to put in friction and stops and all these different things to get that high containment rate. Like you'd have a lot of drop off and on
Right.
conversations and
So by
whatnot. So I think
containment rate, do you mean cases that are not escalated?
cases that
Or
are not escalated, yeah,
okay,
cases that are
perfect.
purely handled by AI that don't result in a human handoff. That I guess that's how we define containment rate
Hmm.
is just like a human handoff. So um, I think
Yeah, that makes sense.
we to circle it back, we just really wanted to focus and reevaluate of like what are the metrics that we hold as the top priority, and what do we make sure doesn't decline with the new kind of emphasis on a containment rate or a improved
Yeah,
average handle time, so to speak.
Yeah.
interesting.
No, that makes sense. I think I love what you just said that you have to continually evaluate what is the North Star. Like, what are we working towards with AI?
Yeah.
Because
Mhm.
AI is obviously so powerful and it is so validating. It'll tell you you're right. It'll tell you you have great
It
ideas.
will. It definitely will.
And so it's like you can't always rely on it necessarily to help you brainstorm. But I think if you come into it with a clear North Star, it will help you get there. Like
Yeah.
it is incredible at paving the path to get where you want to go.
Yep.
So what right now would you say is the North Star for this?
That's a good question. Historically, it's always been our customer satisfaction rate, like our CSAT. That's always been like our North Star metric for support. This is still very high, but I think especially in the next 12 months, what we're going to
Hmm.
shift more to is our recontact rate. That to me is a better
Interesting.
showcase of a high quality experience versus purely containment rate. And the reason being, let's say you're talking with a bot and you get frustrated and you drop off, and 2 days later you reach out with the exact same issue. That to me is like that actually wasn't a contained conversation. So
Mm.
we in the next 12 months are really going to focus on like our recontact rate. So it's like when you first touch base with Brex, whether it's AI, whether it's human, you're getting the resolution the first time and you
Yeah.
don't need to reach back out. And it's both solving the immediate issue, proactively solving any other issues we find, and educating so that you don't have to reach out again in the future. And if you do have to reach out again in the future, then it's like, okay, then that's the problem, whether it's like the product isn't built sufficiently or it's not explained. So really what I think we want to focus on is like our retouch contact rate, which I
Interesting.
guess is a little more nuanced version of contact rate.
I'd be curious to hear, do you guys have any type of like, say I chat in with a Brex AI agent, I get
Yeah.
frustrated, I drop off of the conversation. Is there any type of automated sentiment analysis that's run on that conversation that says this person might reach back out?
Yeah, we have exactly that. We have sentiment analysis on all of our conversations, whether it's like positive, neutral, negative. We also have an AI process of QAing all of the conversations for like tone, verbiage, anything like that. And then we also, on top of those two things, have a manual process as well too. Like we still have human intervention of like, let's look at conversations, let's take these different subsets. So like we definitely have multiple like processes to QA and make sure that the quality is there of like, why did this go bad? How can we fix that? How can we prevent this type of behavior from happening again?
It's so fascinating because to me, AI is kind of the ultimate realization of, what people were talking about with like the information economy, right? Back in the 2010s and 2000s, where truly information is the economy, right?
Yeah,
like these chats that you're talking about, like that's meaningful economic data to you guys. It's not just, anyways, it's very fun to think about the depths to which these implications go.
Yeah, it's like we were building. What comes to mind is like we were building these gold mines forever, dumping data into these mines, but we couldn't mine it. Maybe we could get to the surface, but AI finally, it's like we're able to access it.
Yeah, and I think that's a huge kind of win as well. Of the other kind of portion of what my team owns is kind of like the voice of the customer aspect from support and operations. Like we really, so like at Brex, we call it the customer pulse. It was a manual document that we've been writing for years. And, it's like a really labor intensive process of like, how do I take all this support data? How do I take all of these support metrics? How do I take survey data? How do I take anecdotal feedback from sales and CX agents and all these different things, and then like craft it into a one single narrative of like, this is what's well, this is what's okay, this is what's not going well. And that's where I feel like AI has also really helped augment our ability is like, now instead of like my inability as a human to be like, okay, I guess I'll take these 5 anecdotal experiences that I see from chats and like try and drive this narrative of like, we should change the product like this. Now I can have 5,000 interactions that help support that same conclusion, and then feel much more confident of like, we need to fix this. This is where we should dedicate engineering resources, and we'll improve the customer experience. Because before it just was more difficult, and it was, I would say, less accurate because it was just like, I don't have the capacity to like take in as much as I need to like drive that.
Yeah.
So on the flip side, metrics can tell us so much, and analytics and statistics and whatnot, but they can also obfuscate a lot from us, right? If we are not careful in how we use them. I'd be interested to hear, at Brex, do you guys have any type of, like, is there like a process of reaching out to customers to do, I don't know what I'd call it, like manual quality interview? I don't know what the right term is. What kind of, I guess what I'm asking is like, what kind of physical stuff are you guys doing to make sure that your metrics are staying in touch with what you truly want the product to do?
No, that's a really good question. I would say right now ours is very reactive in the sense of like, anytime you interact with support, like we have like surveys that go out, or we have like quality checks with our QA process where it's like, this was a good experience, this was a bad experience. And so we have what we call like our service recovery program, but it's essentially where like a team leader, a manager, or more senior individual on the support team will reach out to customers to be like, hey, like we saw that you had a less than ideal experience. What can we do to fix that, to drive that? Whether it's like whether it's just a listening ear, whether it's like actually fixing a process, getting you the end goal that you're wanting originally. And so I think that's really like our physical touch point of like, what's going well, what's not going well. And then it's really just an easy feedback loop of like, why did this person have a bad interaction? Was it product or process, or like human error? So it's like one of those 3, and then it's like, okay, let's just feed it into the appropriate feedback loops to make sure that those things get addressed. And so we still definitely have that physical kind of like human, I'm reaching out to you, what can we do to fix, what can we do to improve?
Yeah. Do you see a world where we no longer need a human in the loop for these customer experience cycles?
It's a good question. Personally, I don't see a world. I see a world where like much of the administrative tasks are eliminated, right? I still see it farther off, or who knows? I feel like any plan you have with AI is immediately obsolete the next day. But in my current state right now, what I see is like I see that still far out because I always think of like a JP Morgan. How many API tool calls would they need to be able to do anything? Like my wife tried to update her credit card when we got married to like my name or something, and it was like they like laughed at us. They're like, "Oh, you thought the credit card was the same as the bank account? Like that's so funny. You have to whatever, right?" So it's like this whole mess of terribleness, especially in the finance and banking side. Like, I think there's a lot of work to be done, but I see a lot of that task being able to be accomplished with AI. I really what I think is still the core concept of a support team is like relationship building, helping to maximize the product, helping to work through questions or anything like that. Like, I still see the relationship building as a very core component of the support team, and and now we just have a more like highly trained, highly specialized like people who can do more and more that don't have to worry about like I need to update this person's phone number, or I need to order this person a new credit card. Like that's what's really going to be consumed. And I think a very high percentage will in the future get to that point. A lot of work to get there, but not the relationship building aspect.
It's so interesting to hear that because I feel like Jake and I hear that more and more often from guests we have on the show. More and more people are, pivoting from a vision of like, hey, AI is going to do everything for me to, hey, AI is going to do these things for me so I can focus on,
exactly
X, Y, and Z instead.
Exactly.
Bringing it back a little bit to fintech. Something that's fun about the finance industry and fintech in general is the many regulations that you're subject to. How do you navigate that with the chatbot experience? Is there any type of special guidance the chatbots need, or is it just a blanket policy at the beginning that says, these issues always route to a human because we can't trust, a bot to handle them?
No, really good question, and it's funny that you said that they're fun of all the regulations. I wouldn't necessarily classify them as that, but no, it's I think it depends. Both it's the partner our partner that we signed with Sierra, I think does a really good job. They come from like a really good like helping finance companies as well, and so it's a really good mix of like there's just really specific policies and guardrails that we build of like these types of questions. I think you start at the high level of like this type of question here, never talk about. This type of question is okay to talk about. Once we establish that, then we could start to get more fine or nuanced of like, okay, like this broad cat. So like a really good example is we have our banking product. We're not a bank, but we're a broker dealer. And so we have partner banks. And so like we do have that broker dealer aspect. So talking about an ACH transaction within our product isn't a restricted thing. Like that's not like a investment vehicle or anything like that. But within the banking product itself, like there are investment aspects. And so to say you can't talk about anything with Brex business accounts wouldn't be fully accurate because there are aspects that an AI bot could talk about. So it's like we first start out with this guardrail of like, hey, this is a restricted topic. You can't talk about this. And then we need to get nuanced and refine that logic of like, hey, when a customer is being like, hey, I'm running my payroll and the ACH didn't go through. That's not a restricted topic. That's something that an AI bot could help you with. And so it takes a lot of QA. It takes a lot of refinement. And so it's like a very, very meticulous, slow rollout of like, okay, now we're talking about this. We see a couple conversations it's talking about that, right? And so there's honestly just a lot of refinement that we do very back and forth with our partner. It's we're doing it internally and we're partnering with this company Sierra of like, hey, it said this, it shouldn't say this, it should say this verbiage. So I would say it's a combination of both of like pretty robust, strict policies and guardrails, but then a very like every day we look at conversations every day to make sure that they're saying the same things and meeting the correct regulations.
And is that process of the quality assurance on the AI chats, is that the same as it would be for like a human chatter, or or is it more stringent, more
I
or
think
less
it's
stringent, I guess.
I think it's
Yeah,
more,
right.
I think it's more stringent. Like, I think we're even more like hyper focused on like,
Yeah.
why did it say this word? Why did it insinuate this? Where did it pull that from? All these things. So I guess it's
Right.
still, I guess that's super different from a human agent the more I talk about it. But I don't know. I feel like it's more like, I would care more about the exact verbs and words that the LLM
Yeah.
uses versus like the human uses. So
Right.
I just asked that because it's I haven't had anyone that, you know, has been using it for support yet, and I've been fascinated to hear that from
yeah,
someone.
yeah,
I know. Yeah, it's interesting because it, before I go to the question I was going to ask, it touches on a similar theme that we've heard. Actually, Elon Musk talks a lot about it with his robo taxis and things like that, where he says, he's like, look, it's not whether the, automatic driving car never ever gets in a crash. He's like, that's not the question.
exactly,
The question is, does it get in a crash less than a human?
exactly.
If yes, then like, great.
Yeah, that's
use the
exactly what
car.
I was gonna say actually. I was at a conference, the Money 2021, and someone had asked me that question, and I said like the same thing of just like, we already have the processes built in place to recover when agents have misinformation or they say the wrong thing or they don't help the right customer. And so
Yeah.
like, I feel like the word hallucination has a very like nefarious, like, oh my gosh, like
Big
it's
time.
gonna hallucinate. Like and it's
Yeah.
like, that's obviously not a great thing, but we also have human agents that hallucinate and say the wrong
Yeah.
thing of like, oh,
Yeah.
I read
Yes,
the wrong
yes.
thing. I misinterpreted what the customer is saying and I gave them the wrong information. So
Which is
it's like,
all a hallucination is in
it's
reality.
exactly what, yeah. So like
To an extent.
hallucination is just such a scary word, but it's like, we already have a very robust process built in place of like, if wrong information is provided, what do we do to correct that? And so it's like, we just apply that same process to
Yeah.
the chatbot.
The other thing that I like to point out to people is that like you have intellectually, like in your thought processes, I would bet you that all of us have just as many hallucinations as an LLM has. The only thing is that most of us correct those hallucinations internally, like before we try them in the real world. Like, we'll think through something like, oh wait, that doesn't make sense. We'll try this instead, and then we try it, right?
Totally.
And so we
I think
have those failure states hidden from us, whereas with an LLM, like it's immediately obvious.
Totally. And I think what's scary too is, I guess, maybe just like the scale of the LLM. So you're like, maybe if I miss this I guess an LLM could talk to
Right.
1,000 conversations in this day versus my human agents could only have like a couple hundred. And so, maybe that's the worry is like, if I don't correct the hallucination, it just gets out of hand too quickly. I don't feel like we've found that. I don't feel like I've ever had a time where it's been like, oh, holy crap, like we missed this. And there's like, it's like, just like a human agent where it's like, oh, I saw this conversation. That's less than ideal. I don't think they said the right thing, or it pulled, maybe our help center wasn't as thorough as it needed to be. And it kind of like jumped the gap between two things where it kind of insinuated something. So,
interesting.
No,
Well, and
totally
a
agree.
business like yours is a perfect case study for the use of AI in support, because you have a very managed user base. It's not going to be, at least from my understanding of the business, like it's not going to be as potentially dynamic as like say like some Shopify site, right, that is selling cool sweaters, right? You might get a viral sweater and you get 100,000 visitors, and if for some reason the chatbot on the site is telling people like, hey, this sweater is free, right?
Yeah.
Like we have like we have consistent volume, like we can forecast very appropriately of like it, we'll expect this amount of things in these certain areas.
Right.
So
Right. That makes sense.
Really interesting stuff.
I know, it's fascinating. So, I mean, in that vein, obviously it sounds like you've managed it very well. You've put in guardrails, you've done all of the appropriate things with AI.
Yeah.
But have there been any, I'll call them AI bloopers, things that have happened that have kind of been embarrassing for Brex, or indiscretions? Because I feel like everyone we talk to, there typically are.
Yeah, I think, I don't think I wouldn't say we've had any like incident of like, oh my gosh, like we had to reach out to all these customers, like all these bad things were happening. I think there's just certain nuances that, so like I think two good examples is we care very much about the handoff of an AI agent to a human agent, wanting to ensure that there's the right amount of friction. I think people will come in and just immediately be like, I want to talk to human, I want to talk to human, because we're all trained by previous support slot bots, which are just absolutely awful, right? So you come in and you're just like, I want to talk to human. So like, we've really been very intentional of like, what's the right amount of friction to allow the bot to try and answer a question before it hands off to a human. We've definitely struggled with like too much friction of just like someone is stuck in a loop of like, I really want to get to a person. And so we had to pull that back. And so we've had instances of that where I've felt confident where it's like, hey, we need to reach out to this person and be like, hey, like we saw that you had this bad interaction with this bot. We've corrected the behavior. You know, we don't let us know if there's anything else. I've definitely seen instances of that. I've also seen instances of because our bot is trained on support material, it acts like a support agent where someone reaches out and is like, hey, like I have the financial documents that, you know, I need to provide to Brex. And the bot goes, great, I'll make sure our team knows and we'll get back to you. The bot does not have the capability of passing a financial document to an internal team yet. We're working on that, but it's not. And so like it ends the conversation. The person's like, great, I'm taken care of. Nothing is happening with that person. So like we find that, we reach out and we're like, hey, we did pass the information. We'll connect you with our support team. So there's things like that. Right? Like I don't think anything really egregious in the sense of like it told someone, I don't know, right? Like I haven't found anything like that, but there are these just like little customer experience issues where it's like, yeah, these are definitely bloopers where it's like, let's go in and make sure like we physically reach out to the customer. Hey, we apologize. We fix this. You'll be fine moving forward.
Yeah.
I really like that you brought up the friction thing because I am very fond of saying that the correct amount of friction in any product experience is not zero.
Yes.
So I'm very glad to hear that ideology is spreading.
Yeah. Well, because like, I mean, I don't blame people, but they don't even give it a chance. It's just you get the classic agent.
They don't realize like how good the tech is now. Like it's so much better than anything that came before. And because it talks similarly, like, yeah, anyway, sorry. Continue.
Yeah, no. When we first launched, I feel like that was part of the challenge was like actually like training customers too of like, how do I get used to this kind of like new environment where we've had customers for many years on Brex. They were very familiar with like our chat bot, and so they could just push through to the person that they wanted, right? And so it's like, how do I retrain a customer to like, this is a new experience. Like you could give it a chance. And I feel like our containment rate was, we didn't really see anything for the first like few weeks to a month or see as much of an increase as we were expecting. But then once we did our work to critique, once customers started learning, that's when we started to see it like really take off and really, really compound that way.
That's super interesting. I wonder if there was some like internal word of mouth going on at those companies, right? Of like, hey, someone says like, hey, I tried the new Brex chatbot and it's actually really good. You should try it too. Super fascinating. I love hearing about that.
Yeah. This is more of just, if we step back from customer experience, Jake, I'm curious at Brex, this large, successful company, how are they treating AI within the company as a whole? Is there much education? Is there much of a push to the entire employee base? Or is it more, like obviously your team has really taken it on and is it siloed or how does that work?
No, yeah, good question. I feel like Brex has done a really good job where it's being pushed on all fronts, where every employee of Brex is expected to learn about it, to use it, to implement it in their day-to-day work, in their processes, from support to recruiting to engineering to like sales, right? Like it really is widespread. I would say, and again, back to that friction point too, like without some amount of friction, I don't think you'll actually have that true adoption. So we've gone as far as like it's part of like our review process and like our like our performance reviews, which are like biannually, right? Of like, how is this person developing on the AI side, both from a personal standpoint, if they're a manager or a people manager, like how are they evangelizing it and enabling their team to utilize it and increase that. So I think Brex did. I think part of that 12-month transition from a product standpoint was also like a people transition standpoint of like, how do we just make this a core component of like the work that we do every day?
Right.
Yeah. Back to the friction point. I think that the friction is somewhat needed for kind of the aha moment to occur. Like for me
Yes.
early on, I was like, wow, this is so cool. This is so fun. Played with ChatGPT a ton, started using it at work, and it gave me mostly code that was like, I can kind of use this, I guess.
Yeah.
And then one day I had it fix a bug in some code I wrote. I got the code back and like, this is all wrong. This is completely written differently like than how I had it written originally. Yeah. And then I started reading through the code and I was like, wait, no, like this is, it may be written in a way that I don't like, but like this fixes the problem really elegantly. And then from there on, my AI usage took off.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. Like you have to have that amount of friction to be able to like, and again, I guess to the theme that we've been talking about is like, I think that would be true of any tool that we introduce. So it's like, if it's really important to the business and they feel like it's going to like drive value, it's like, you have to have some sort of friction to get people out of the rut that they have every day of using it. Like, let's say of any tool, not just AI.
True. Yeah.
Yeah. I love that. I'm curious, Jake, outside of work, like how are you using AI in your day-to-day life?
It's a good question. I feel like outside of work, I feel like I would say I'm pretty typical. Like I don't use search engines anymore. Like I just use whether it's ChatGPT or Grok or, like different other like AI, different other LLMs. I use it in every of my day-to-day. I use it to find questions. I use it to learn about more things. I'm really into golf, and so I use it a lot with my golf game and researching clubs and how to swing. Right, so like I've got the golf bug, but I think I just use it now as my tool of just like learning, planning, figuring out. Surprisingly, what I really want to start doing more is like automation in like my personal finance life or like my personal admin tasks of my life, like paying bills and all those things. Like I'm pretty pro on doing that myself or like having systems to handle that, but I want to start using it more there. But yeah, I'd say really it's just now my tool to learn and to find out about, different things.
Yeah, I love that. I think what you said, I'm the same way. Like I don't use search engines anymore.
Yeah.
It's such like a simple phrase, but it I think signifies such a huge shift.
Yeah.
In like a cultural practice that has existed for decades of search engines versus, and it's still not, completely adopted or anything, but it is, especially in the younger generations, a huge shift. Like people
it's a huge shift. Yeah.
I'd like to make the point that I mean, we all grew up in the same area. I'm sure that you guys remember going to the computer lab at Alpine Elementary.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I don't remember if you were at Alpine or the other one, whatever it was. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And now you won't go learn to Google. Isn't that a weird thought? Like,
yeah.
Back then when we were kids, it was the new thing, and now it's like, it's passé now. Nobody Googles anymore.
I know, and it is. So I have two younger brothers, and they're both at Utah State. And so I actually just went and spoke at one of they call them like Focus Fridays. But the whole focus of the Focus Friday was like, how should I think about getting a job? How should I think about like what life after school now with like AI? And so like I both envy and don't of like I think they're in a very like interesting space of like you could easily use AI to just like check out of school and not learn and like not do these certain things and not advance and like or you could easily use it as like a really advanced tool in your life to just like go farther and farther than we did when we were at that same like stages of life. And so no, I
to your point, we interviewed a recent Utah State. I don't remember if he ended up graduating or dropping out for his business. But we had him on the show, and I can't remember how he put it, but essentially he said, he's like, listen guys, like I'm an idiot, and I'm paraphrasing him. This is what he said. I'm not calling him an idiot. I think he's a very bright dude, but he was like, I'm an idiot, but any idiot can go read research papers online. And what they don't tell you in school is that there's money locked up in those research papers. And he just raised a bunch of money from some venture folks here in Utah.
Good for him. Yeah. That's cool. That's very cool.
Yeah, he's crushing it.
To your point, like AI is going to be a very, what's the word? just going to lead to divisive outcomes for people.
Yeah,
For sure.
I do think it'll be a divisive outcome because I think now there's an easier way to kind of like skirt by. And I think that's not even true of school. I think that's true of like anyone in business or whatnot, of like it's easy to kind of like skirt by. But I think the magnifiers of the people that can learn how to like use it is like will be much higher. So
Yeah. Have you seen this trend? It's not new, but it's just becoming easier where people have like 3 full-time jobs.
yeah,
Have you seen this?
I have seen it. I have heard about it. I've heard of people through that I know people doing it.
Yeah.
Which is crazy.
Wild. It's crazy. But also wild that like, do I condone it? No. But do I think it's crazy that you
Yeah.
can?
That's
Yeah,
what
I
I
do.
think that I always get back to is like what type.
It's one of
Why
those
are
things
these
like
jobs? Yeah,
you
like
shouldn't have
we.
done that, but also like
Yeah.
I admire the moxie, right?
Yeah,
Like,
like I hate the player or hate the game. Like I guess I hate the game. Where it's like, why do we have this many positions that are just
Exactly.
like so menial and like just like input driven? I guess that it's like
Yeah.
someone could have 3 of them. Where it's like, why don't we? As from I guess from a business standpoint, is like I don't want those types of jobs that it's just like a
Totally.
menial input where it's like one person could do 3 or 4 of them. It's like I want same concept of our support team is like I want a kick-ass support team that is like really great at what they do,
Right.
that it's like really engaged with customers, and it's like they don't have to worry about this simple input-driven stuff.
Yeah.
So on
love
that note, so there's been some recent studies that have shown that AI increases productivity at an individual level for workers, but that productivity doesn't seem to translate to the organization at large yet. On the other hand, we also have GDP data in a year where the unemployment rate is through the roof, and there's all sorts of economic uncertainty due to tariffs. I'm not going to dive into the political aspects, but point being, the GDP data, in spite of all of that, is still looking pretty rosy. So from your perspective, as someone who has implemented AI at a deep level in an organization, do you feel that the organization is now more productive because of it? Or is it that you have the productivity gains truly are at the individual level right now, and it'll take some time before organizational gains develop?
No, it's a really good question that I think we've thought about a lot. And I don't have a clear answer, and I think it's a good problem to have. I think we introduced so many, like, I think we kind of shot ourselves in the foot of like, hey, is this really helpful in the sense
Right.
of like, I want to look at, we just implemented the chatbot. What did it do to the CSAT score, right? We implemented so many different improvements from like a support perspective. It's hard to say like just the chatbot really drove our improvement, or just introducing this agent co-pilot helped drive productivity, because we introduced both of them at the same time. And so we eliminate a lot of our we call it, like our low complexity, high volume tasks. And now our agents are left with this like high complexity to medium volume. And so like, are our productivity metrics showing improvement? I would say technically no, but it's because like the composition of the types of tasks that they're working on are like changing. And so
population has
interesting.
changed.
So I think from a data wise, I think it's hard to show that right now. From an anecdotal experience, I think yes. Like I think agents are more productive. I think that they can answer harder questions. I think that they can work more collaboratively. I think specifically for maybe bigger companies, our support team is a mix of internal and external agents, with BPO agents across the world. English isn't their first language. I definitely think that an agent co-pilot is really helpful for them. Helping to summarize cases, helping to generate emails or chats or anything like that. And so data-wise is hard because we've introduced so much change that it's like I can't isolate of like,
I
can't parse out correct. But anecdotally, yes, it's helping. And from like a staffing headcount perspective, yes, like we can operate with, we don't have to grow as much to handle the same amount of volume that we're expected to see in the coming years.
Right. Yeah, I think part of the problem with our current state is that, and I could be totally off, and you too feel free to say you're so off.
I'm going to yell at you.
But Yeah, yell, go wild. But Spencer, you mentioned that like the gains right now are showing at the individual level, right? People are more productive, which means in my mind, like they can get more done in a less amount of time, right? They're more efficient, they're more productive with the time that they have. And I wonder if a lot of people they still have the same benchmarks. So they're able to maintain those benchmarks with less time, but they're not surpassing yet, right? Like I think there's going to be a shift once AI capabilities are truly understood, where it's like, okay, yeah, last year this was your benchmark. This year you have full access to this tool, this tool, this tool. We're going to bump your benchmark up and you need to meet this now because we know that you can. Right now it's just so new that people, the benchmarks are the same, but they have these wild AI tools. And so they're like, great, in 60% of the time, I can still do what I need to do.
Yeah, it's such an interesting question to me from a human psychology perspective, because it's like, to what degree is it fair to raise the benchmarks, like you were saying, Jake? Because obviously you raise them too much and people are going to feel like, oh, you're just treating me like a machine, et cetera, right? And that can ruin morale.
Totally.
You don't raise them enough and you're not really pushing your staff to increase productivity.
And then there's the argument of like, well, there's two paths then. Like one is like, well, let's increase the benchmarks and maintain an 10-hour workday for a lot of people, 8 to 10 hour workday. And let's just like drive it home and go wild. But then there's the other argument of like, well, we're growing, life's great. Let's everyone work 6 hours a day and get the same amount
exactly.
done. Like,
what I would be interested to see a company try is really heavy incentive based stuff, right? Like, here's the benchmark, you meet this, you stay on, right?
Yes.
Below that, we might have a hard conversation, but like, this is the benchmark. It's pretty much what it used to be, but go above and beyond. Here's some new incentives. I have no idea how that would work. But I'd be really interested to see.
I think that's a really interesting point. Is like this is off the soapbox. This is personal Jakob talk now, but I feel like that's how I kind of see it shifting as well too. Of like, is very incentive based. Of like, now we have this ability to solve tasks. And you can go about that, and it's like, we need to meet these certain benchmarks, and it's like, then you can have the creativity of using the suite of tools that we have in order to go and like accomplish those numbers. From a support side, whether it's like you solve X amount of cases, you get this amount of like positive interactions, you get this amount of like average handle time. But I do think there is that kind of like set benchmark. I do think it's interesting. I've been talking with a few other like support leaders at different companies, and something that we have to figure out in the short to medium term is we definitely like AI is really good at handling those low complexity, high volume tasks. And I still don't think we've cracked making the medium and high complexity tasks easier. So now people are just stuck with like, okay, now my day is just high octane, only medium, high. The worst part of like, I can go on these like very complex, hard things to do all day. And so there's definitely, I think, that burnout component because there's no ebb and flow now. I don't think that will maintain because now we're really good at the low complexity stuff. Now our focus is like, how do I make it easier for you to solve? How do I turn a medium high complexity now into a lower complexity thing? But that's why I think it's going to turn, like you mentioned, that like incentive based type of thing.
Yeah,
very interesting.
I like that. I think that's probably the path it'll take.
Have you seen any competitors make major missteps with their AI integrations? I'm always interested in hearing about AI mess ups.
You have to laugh at your competitors.
Yeah, you don't have to name them by name. We'll be professional here. But I'm just curious. Curious if you've seen any in your industry.
I think Brex does a good job. Like, I think it's important to know what your competitors are doing, but not be so hyper focused on like every day of like, oh, this person did that, this person did that. I don't think nothing really major comes to mind of like, oh, this person did a huge major mistake. I think it's funny to see that like I've seen a few competitors talk about like, hey, we're rolling out more hours, we're doing a better support experience. And it's like, that's just because of, I don't know, it's just because of AI. I think that was like the talk track we had is like, oh, we're already doing this for a long time, but it's great to see these other big competitors like starting to like expand more of like the capabilities we already had, but it's just like through the guise of AI. But I don't think there's any, no, I wouldn't say.
That's probably a good thing. Yeah. Well, Jake, as we're wrapping up, I'm curious what advice you would give because obviously like you've been on this journey of like not technical AI, you're not a developer.
No, not
having to learn and implement this within a company. So I'm curious what advice you would give to not even just customer experience, but just business managers, directors, VPs, whoever it is trying to lead change within a company. What advice would you give them as they're doing that?
On a personal note, I would say be super vulnerable and not be afraid to look stupid. I think that's like a bias that we all have, is like, I don't want to, especially if you're a leader, of like, I don't want to seem like I don't know what I'm talking about, or I like, and then we all just kind of like operate on this like, oh, I think everyone knows what we're doing, but we're not. So like, don't be afraid to look stupid. Ask all the questions. We're all learning something. We're all learning this like revolutionary like technology that no one, I think, really has the full grasp of. And so that's on a personal note. I think from like a top-down perspective is being hyper transparent. I think Brex does a really good job of just being very transparent, of like, from a support perspective of like, hey, I know I can understand why agents would feel apprehensive about this, or they feel nervous about introducing these new things. Here is how we're approaching it. Here's what success looks like. And I think having like hard conversations of like, hey, we're not going to grow our support org as much as we were originally anticipating. We're not looking to eliminate jobs, but we're not looking to grow as aggressively. Like, let's look at it from like a business minded, like, we're all owners of Brex, right? We're in a private startup. We're all in the equity game. So like, let's look at it from a business perspective, right? So I think being vulnerable and being hyper transparent, I think, is the best way to go about when you're going through this like AI journey of like implementing it from a small to a big company.
I like that a lot, especially because honestly, I think that a lot of the techniques for managing change with AI overall are just good techniques for living life in general. Like,
totally.
That kind of transparency, no matter what the particular new business, environment of the day brings. That's exactly how to approach it. Trust and transparency with stakeholders.
Love that.
Totally
humility, right? Like, just you're trying to, everyone. I love that you said the second someone says that they totally understand AI, I'm like, you're full of it. Like, get out.
It's like, that's an obvious lie.
Sam Altman doesn't know it. Like, get out. No, that's great advice. Thank you for that. That's awesome. Yeah. Jake, if people want to follow you, follow what you're doing at Brex, are there any good platforms for that?
I mean, you could just follow me on LinkedIn. I used to be big in the social media game, not so much anymore. But so, you want to shoot me a DM on LinkedIn, I'd be happy to talk. So,
okay, yeah, we'll drop the profile so people can reach out.
Thanks so much.
I love that.
Okay,
okay, guys. Yeah, it was a great talking to you.